And welcome to another episode of Inspired for Impact. Today we are talking to some amazing female entrepreneurs and listening to Teresa from Madrid, who has conducted a study on what it means to be a female entrepreneur in the digital world. So without further ado, I'm actually going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. Longtime colleague and dear friend, Franziska, would you like to introduce yourself and tell our audience a couple of interesting little things about yourself?
Yeah, I would love to. So my name is Franziska and I have an accent, apparently a big one, because I'm a Swazi, Swiss Australian. I was born in Switzerland, moved to Sydney, Australia 16 years ago. And so now I consider myself a Swazi. And when I moved here back home, I studied marketing and political science. And then I moved to Sydney when I was working in advertising. And from there, I realized that that industry is great to learn, but it's not one that I felt like I'm making an impact. I always wanted to work for the United Nations instead, and felt like I'm not really fulfilling my purpose. So 12 years ago, started my first business called Basic Bananas. And at Basic Bananas, we help small business owners to understand how to market their businesses. So it's a mentoring organization, and then started Oceanlovers, which is my passion business. With Oceanlovers, our purpose is to motivate the masses to help us save the oceans, and we do that through different programs. We have ocean cleanups, we have programs in kindergartens, and the product we have is a surf suit made from recycled plastics. And I met Teresita through Christina, I think this year or beginning of this year, I think. And yeah, that's long story short.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for being on the podcast. And I know you have some amazing things to share about being a female entrepreneur. Rebecca Grainger, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, the founder of triiyo. My background is recruitment, and having spent over a decade recruiting for companies, I realized that women were falling into a black hole when they became parents. And it was simply because they were disconnected and disengaged. The employer and manager were forgetting to keep in touch with them when they were on leave. So triiyo is a connectivity platform. We started out supporting organizations with parental leave to simplify the way they connect and communicate. And now we've expanded across any form of workplace transition and leave, which includes mental health, workers' compensation and secondments.
And you certainly have a history as being a female entrepreneur and all the wonderful things that you've done, which will unfold during this interview. So thank you for joining us. And my dear friend and SU colleague, Teresa Alarcos, all the way from Madrid, where it's 8 o'clock in the morning. Teresa, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and the research program that you undertook.
Yeah, okay. So thank you so much for this invitation. I'm so happy to be with 3 great entrepreneurs and the 4th that is hidden. My name is Teresa Alarcos. I am a board member of several companies, tech companies in general. And like 6 years ago, I found that there were many women that were unknown and had really amazing business models. So I decided to run a study about what are women doing, what kind of enterprise are developing and launching. And I created a nonprofit organization to give visibility to women. Then I made a deep study in order to help women to be a part of this technological revolution, as we are a minority in this industry. There is the data says that there is just 17% of the startups are led or funded by women, and only solo woman is 4%. So we are a minority and we need to be a part of this movement, because the ESG number 5 need to be enlarged if we want to fulfill the other 16 ESGs. Otherwise, this agenda of United Nations is going to be a little bit we are not going to have half of the talent and we are not going to fulfill the goals of this ambitious agenda. So I run also a huge event called Inspiring Women Leaders in the Digital Era, in which Christine has been running and moderating the international learnings of best practices of programs in different countries all over the world, in the 5 continents. We try to influence the society so that they learn from these best practices and case studies that are amazing, but are hidden. So this is my story. I hope you enjoy the data that we are going to talk about during this conversation.
Thanks, Teresa. And I'd love you to tell our readers a little bit more about the research. So how did the research come about, and what were some of the major findings from the research that you undertook?
Okay, so the major findings, the objectives were to know which is the profile of woman that is doing entrepreneurship. Then what kind of technology these companies are using. Then the third, how are these companies, the size, if they are operating internationally, etc. And then we compare them with the men startups, and then the barriers that women have in order to start a entrepreneurship project. So these were the objectives. What we found is that a woman that is doing entrepreneurship, and it coincides with other countries, and they have written me from many countries, from Germany, from France. A woman is an international profile, and like you, at least they have been living in 2 countries. They have a very high degree. They have very good education. They have a master's degree, or they have 90% of the cases. They have a master's degree in 70% of the cases. They have done more than 1 entrepreneurial project, 1 out of 4. So they are 1 out of 4 serial entrepreneurs. Imagine. So this is the culture of innovation. When you fail, you learn, and then you just go on and on until you find your purpose. You find what you like. And woman is biased a little bit because people think that the entrepreneurship of women is social entrepreneurship, and it's not true. We do everything. We are in all industries. We are in prop tech, we are in femtech, we are in fintech, we are in all industries, but we are unknown. So this is a good finding. Besides that, we use all kinds of technologies, blockchain, AI, machine learning, CRISPR, robotics, virtual reality, augmented reality. We use all of them. We are IoT. We are not just doing data, or we are not data scientists only. We are using all of them, but in a smaller scale, because we are very few that are promoting or launching this kind of projects. And this is, and the companies that women are launching are companies that are smaller and have problems to find, these are the barriers, financing. We have a case of in Silicon Valley in which a woman had to find a fake founder in order to obtain financing to go to the pitch rounds, because they were not investing on them. And then Stanford University tracked a study, and they found out that there was a bias when women were going to this pitch. And why? Because we as humans have a machine learning, the amygdala in our brain, and we find the things that are familiar are the good things. And then what they did is that they are correcting this, because most of the investors are men. 93% of the investors are men, and now there's a movement of women investors. Men are more sensitive to this kind of, they hear deeply the projects of women, especially solo women, to see and to cut these barriers. Inspiration. We were really good at influencing our government. In fact, with this study, the government approved 52 million euros help for projects for women entrepreneurs. So we are changing the world. This is very important. And for women who are more than, for projects of entrepreneurship, yesterday that are more than 50 years, another amount. And these are good news, because you have the normal helps of financing and then specific help for women. And this is very helpful, because normally women, first, they don't reach the financial scores or projections that men have, because when women business models are settled, they find difficulties when they are in pre-series A, they find difficulties to find this financing. So this is the point where the help is coming. Then
that's fantastic, Teresa. Congratulations on being effective in raising that much money. I think it's quite remarkable. And you remind me of a couple. There's some two female founders that we've done some work with in Australia who went to a prop tech event in Singapore. They were the only women there, and they were probably the oldest in the room as well. So the room was full. They said the room was full of 30-year-old, 35-year-old men who were into prop tech. Nobody spoke to them, and I found that remarkably difficult to believe. But absolutely take them at their word. Francesca and Rebecca, I'd love to find out, as female entrepreneurs, have you found any resistance? And I know that you've both been interviewed by Teresa for as part of the research. So maybe if we can go into a little bit of the answers and the findings that you had, the enlightenment potentially that you had out of the discussion with Teresa, and any issues that you have come across as female entrepreneurs. Maybe you haven't, I'm not sure. So Franziska, I might throw to you first.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have to say, I really love being a female, and I love being a female in this space, because I do think, the work that Teresa is doing is so important, and we can be role models in what we do, and we in a very feminine way, we can show the world that we got this, and women are naturally really good leaders. I've only had a few moments. I remember one time I'm also on the board of an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, and to be a member in that organization, you have to have a certain revenue in your business. And so the percentage of women is very low across the board. It's less than 15% globally. And I remember I was at an event in San Diego for this organization, and I walked into the room, and naturally there was mainly guys there. They thought that I'm the wife of a guy who is in the organization. So for me, it was like, no, I am in this organization. I have a business that qualifies, and nice to meet you. So, and then usually guys straight away will turn and they're like, oh, cool. I've actually found, even though maybe sometimes the perception was like, oh, you must be the wife of someone that is a part of this club. True. Once they realized that I am the person that is a member and running a successful business or businesses, the support has been great. I actually found that I've had really great support from guys also, and women. And in short, I love being a woman in this space, and I love to show that we can run a business without being masculine. We can do this in our own unique way, very successfully, even more successfully sometimes.
So I love what you said then, particularly about the openness as a female and being accepted. But why do you think there's that shortage of women in the first place? So 15% is not a great percentage of people in the organisation. It's a fantastic organisation. I've been involved with it. I love it. I think it's a wonderful place to be, and the support that you get is quite remarkable. But why do you think it's only 15%?
It's probably something that Rebecca can talk to also. I think what probably historically still happened is that women often, they do run businesses, but either there's a lack of confidence to reach that revenue level, or they've had children and then they stayed at home, which is changing now. I mean, as you know, I've just had a baby, and I'm still able to run my businesses because my partner is very supportive. And so I feel like there's a combination of the confidence that is lacking, and Teresa probably has more data on that too. And secondly, also just career-wise, maybe having children has maybe not enabled them to work on their businesses in a way to scale it. And I think it's changing though. In Sydney here, we are aiming for 33% of women membership. So we have a whole bunch of women here that are helping to drive that membership to get more women supporting women. So I think it's a combination, but that might be something actually that Rebecca might have a bit more intel on too.
I agree in terms of the scaling. I think often women step into businesses because they've, potentially become mothers, and they see it as a small business, and to manage around on a part-time basis around family. But I think the second big thing, because not all women start businesses because of that, we do want to build empires and employ large numbers of people. I think that then comes down to the accessibility of funds to be able to scale and grow. So, obviously we know 2.6% of women get venture capital. And I've just come through that process. It was incredibly difficult and long-winded. Would a man have had a different experience? I don't know, because I can't go back and relive that. I did have people at the time saying, if you had a male co-founder, things would be easier. You should go to America and raise over there, because they're far more broader minded, and see startups differently to Australia. Again, I don't have those as comparisons. I have brought on not specifically a co-founder, but a male CTO, and from my experience of the first time of going into a seed raise to the second time, so one was pre-COVID and one was post-COVID in 2020, I have had a different experience. But I must say, I have male investors. The majority of my investors are male, and they are absolutely incredible, really, really supportive. Gender has never, ever been a question or an issue. I'm a female solo founder with none tech. That hasn't been an issue. So, I think accessibility to capital, whether that's loans or funding of any sort, is potentially the barrier to how women are able to scale their business.
And I think, yes, sorry, I align with what you say, is that what we found in the study is that women entrepreneurs do it because they have a purpose. It's not to find self-employment. When we talk about digital entrepreneurship, it's not when we talk about entrepreneurship in general. When we talk about entrepreneurship, it's because they want, they have been working 10 years in a corporation or 5-6 years in somewhere in a company, and they find that they need to do something outside using technology because they find opportunities. So, and what we found, as Stanford found, another Boston Consulting Group in Delivering Through Diversity and other studies, is that the projects of women are more profitable, are more solvent. They pay back the credits sooner and last longer. So investors are looking at the data, and they are now putting money in these projects. So, but the thing is that still they are small. When we compare men and women, we see that in the first 3 years, women are very little scaling, growing. But in the 4th, 5th, they jump very quickly. Is when they find the pre-series A, and this is very important. And women entrepreneurs are all kind of education. They're engineers, but they are psychologists. They are historic. They have studied history. They have studied all kind. They find a partner that complement them. Imagine that there is one tech, they find someone of I don't know, marketing. If they are not tech, they find someone tech. They complement each other and launch the project. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yes.
No, I think that's fantastic for our audience to hear as well. And it is known. You actually just you actually stated something that I was going to ask, or something that we're aware of, is that a startup that has a female founder in there is more likely to continue and to have that longevity for many reasons. So in the tech world, Rebecca, how have you, so you've just employed a chief technical officer. How have you fared in the tech world? Because theoretically it's something that, we're not seen to be good at. And I would argue that just because a lot of females may not have studied engineering because there is still a lack of engineer applicants in most of the universities. I think when my son went through, there were 5 females and 47 males in the class, which is like such a disparity in numbers. But how did you do the tech, so to speak? Where did you go to do the tech for triiyo?
Well, prior to Christian, the CTO, coming on board, I was aligned to accelerators. So I'd been through an accelerator. That's how I got triiyo off the ground at the very beginning. And to be honest, I've looked back and thought, if I'd known how hard the last 3 years were going to be, would I have done it? Yes, I would, because I truly believe that I can make an impact and can really change the way people are treated and their experience in the workplace when they go through life events and transitions. So, you know, talking to your point, Teresa, I think women particularly do come into business as a whole because they want to change something, or they see an opportunity, or they want to do something better. So prior to Christian, I was on an accelerator. So I really had my hand held that whole way. Since Christian's come on board, I think we just work really well because I don't have any blinkers around what tech can and can't do. I just say, we need to figure out to do this. I want this to happen. How do we do it? So it kind of forces him to think outside the box. And so far, this has worked really, really well. I understand the problem intimately. I understand the clients and what they're going to buy. I understand the pain points of the users and the organization. So, you know, I've kind of got the idea of how we can fix this problem, but I'm not confined by knowing what tech can and can't do. So I just sort of position it, and then he goes away and works with our sort of extended tech team around, well, what, you know, how do we fix this problem? How, you know, what can we do? And so far, that's actually worked really, really well.
I love that you have the vision and everything, and then you go and make it work, which is, yeah, I very much relate to that. Sometimes my developers look at me and go, you want it to what? Anyway, okay. Francisca, what about you? So you, a lot of the work that you do with Basic Bananas is online, particularly lately, clearly in the world of COVID. As far as the tech aspect goes, do you control that? Where do you go to find the answers to the tech puzzles?
Yeah, one thing that I'm probably known for is I'm a mega outsourcer. So I'm not the tech person at all. And I have ideas and I know what I would like to happen, but I'm not the one to implement, especially the tech part. So I find that one of the most important things for me personally as an entrepreneur is to always find the right people to work with and to not do everything, because then we are able to also look after family and have, you know, spare time and go surfing, whatever we want to do, write a book. So I have people on my team, developers, that do all the tech part, and often, you know, I might say, hey, I'd like to do that, and then sometimes they even come back with something better. They're like, well, how about, you know, for some of the member access and the members' experiences to consume the content that we have now, we had to do a lot of work on our tech part, because before we were quite in the analog world, a lot of face-to-face training, and now everything had to be put virtually in a way that is a great way to consume this content. So a lot of the stuff sometimes comes from developers that go, hey, I think we could also do it this way to have a better user experience. So outsourcing for me is one of my superpowers.
I love that. We often talk about the superpowers and the superheroes. Teresa, what has that shown around where female founders in the tech world, where do we actually go for assistance?
Can you repeat the question?
So who does the coding? Who helps with the tech aspect? So a female founder often has a fantastic idea.
Yeah, okay. Let me tell you one thing. There is an emerging movement in Europe to promote women in coding and in tech. There are cultural barriers, but I don't know if it happens in Australia, but when women are at school, when they are 7 years old, 6 years old, they think that they are not that good in maths. It's one of the studies that emerged, and it's because and when you go in secondary school, you need to choose sciences or or other kind of topics, engineers are men. So this kind of cultural thing needs to be diluted, no? So that everybody is capable of doing what they want. So it has to do with the education of professors at school, with family beliefs that have been beliefs for many years, and we need to influence them. So in a way that we provide with these cases like yours, and they know that if they have a dream, they can fulfill it, but when they are at school. But the thing is that when you talk to entrepreneurs, 99% of them are inspired by other entrepreneurs, or because they have in their family someone who is engineer, the woman, someone who is entrepreneur, the mother or the father. That's how it works. Someone close to them, a friend of the family who is entrepreneur. In most of the cases, it works that way. But they are not inspired by a teacher, at school, at university. Very few, very few are inspired by them. So we have a lot of work to do in that area. Besides, if you watch television, cartoons, series, you don't see any woman like you as a main character. Do you see an entrepreneur? Do you see any woman engineer? Do you see any coder who is, or do you see the mother in the kitchen, which is really good, because I like to be also in the kitchen. I like cooking, but we do other stuff. We use our brains for other things. So there is a lot of things. There are a lot of things to do in many, let's say, fields, in communication, in education, and cultural change. And this comes from all the society. So that, and it provides, when you provide with these cases like yours, like the book I wrote, people, yes, I didn't know, big presidents, I didn't know there were cases like this. This is amazing. Where did you find them? I found them because they exist. But when you are in a company, in a corporation, you just take what you have close to you. And what you have close to you are the projects and are led mainly by men. So I do the same. Who I talk to do whatever with Christina, because it's the one who I have the closest, no? So these kind of, let's say, paths that are shorter sometimes are not the best, because you need to go deeper.
Yeah, I like that. And there is this issue in schools in Australia as well. And we have somebody on our faculty who runs an organization called Tech Girls Are Superheroes, and goes into schools and encourages girls to do the maths and the science and the physics and the chemistry and get into engineering and get into coding and all of that. Franziska and Rebecca, what was your experience at school? Were you like fond of the sciences and of maths? I know that when I went to school, I was a 3-unit maths geek, but ended up dropping it because I was put off by the teacher, and the same with my science career. I don't know, what did you find at school?
Well, I certainly had male teachers in all of those subjects, and I really do resonate, Teresa, when you say, you can't be what you can't see, and I think that's problematic from school all the way through to leadership roles. And I think when you flip that on the head as well, when you look at the volume of investors that are men that would be able to support women entrepreneurs, typically, we look for similarities. Right. So, men will feel more comfortable investing in men that perhaps they can relate to. Similarly, when we're, graduating or we're choosing our university degrees, if you go and have a look at a degree and, 80% are boys, and you've been in sort of science classes with 80% boys, this is where it's difficult, I think, to get girls and women to stay in these roles. And then just one thing, when we talk about technology companies, often women leave not just because they have babies, but they leave before that because they don't feel they belong, because it's such a tech boys environment, work environment, ping pong tables, not that there's anything wrong with that, but, the whole environment of work is, more concrete, hard and cold, as opposed to more feminine. So even the working environments, we've kind of got it wrong the whole way through, that we don't really appeal to or make girls or women feel that they belong in these environments. And I think that's why we have such a big drop off.
Yeah, I personally, I loved math. I was really good at math. I didn't like physics too much and chemistry, but I loved biology. I loved mathematics. But I'm going to say something maybe a little bit controversial, and it might not even be true. I feel like the skills that I have that are not the tech skills, but more the softer skills are helping me to be a better entrepreneur. And I'm saying this also because we've just launched a company called Data People in January, and we do data and analytics consulting. And so now I work with a lot of guys that are super tech nerds. And again, there are hardly any women in this space. And these tech guys, they would not be able to run a business. I tried to have a partner that is a tech guy, and it didn't work out because the way that they are thinking didn't work in terms of running a company, the skills that you need to have to run a company. So I actually, this might not be generically true, but in my opinion, I feel that sometimes having different skills that are not the tech skills help you to be an entrepreneur, and then you have to hire people with those skills.
I totally concur with that, because that has been my history. And Teresa, when you said that people come from families of entrepreneurs, my grandfather was the biggest entrepreneur. My uncle was an innovator. And my father was always one of the first that did something. So I was very blessed to grow up with a mother and a father that were very much involved in the business world. I'll come back to you in a minute, Teresa, for your experience. But Rebecca and Francisca, where did your yearning to become an entrepreneur come from? Did you have role models? Was it something that was innate in you? How did you come to be in the places that you are? Rebecca, I'll go to you first.
I didn't really have a role model in sort of from an entrepreneurial perspective. My journey really came from seeing that women were falling out of the workplace and at the peak of their career, and were literally, were picking up, other jobs or, doing their own businesses. But it was such an unnecessary thing to be happening. And I knew I could plug that gap. So it kind of came from a need that I saw that I could, or that I wanted to fix from an equality perspective, because I was a new parent at the time, and I knew that I was still ambitious. And I'd actually experienced pregnancy discrimination, which is how I'd sort of fallen out from the corporate world, and then sort of became, sort of into this self-employed entrepreneurial space. But that's how it sort of stemmed from. And if it wasn't for the accelerator that held me from being non-tech and sort of creating a tech business, I don't know that I could have been here that way. But I would like to point out that I do also think being female is a superpower. I completely concur, Francesca. It's really, from when you're hiring, when you're managing people and managing teams, I think being female in that space is incredible. It's incredible, and we definitely do bring something different to the table.
Yeah, I agree. For me, how I fell into entrepreneurship is that I've always struggled with authority in school. Parents, like I've always struggled with authority, and I've always struggled with people doing things in a way that I found is not the most efficient way. I've always had jobs when I was a kid. I was working in a winery, cleaning their fountains and mowing lawns, and I always found like, why are we not doing this better? And then when I was working in advertising, same thing. I'm like, this is just not, we can do this so much more efficiently. And so I always knew, when I was at university even, I always said, one day I will run my own business. I never knew what it was going to be, but I knew that was the only future for me to make me happy. And then when I started looking at what I wanted to do in terms of my own businesses, my only and main, not only, but really the number one criteria to look into what business I get into is always, it has to make a positive impact. If it doesn't make a positive impact, if it's just about money, I have zero interest in either investing or running the business. So struggles with authority, and then picking something that I knew makes a positive impact that I can stand behind.
Love that. Absolutely. Teresa, how did you get into the world of entrepreneurship? I know you have a medical background. What drew you into all the work you do with women in technology?
So thank you for the question. So I am a medical doctor, but when I finished my studies, I went to a company to work because I didn't like a lot the practice with patients, and I studied an MBA, a full-time MBA, and started working in chez L'Oréal Paris in marketing department. So this comes from the fact that I've been a executive for 20 years, and I was the only woman always in the committees and in the boardroom, etc. So when I was the executive of a cable company, the last executive position I had, many women came to me because they wanted to launch their projects, and they say, please, can you help me to launch my brand, because I launched several brands and several businesses. And I said, yes, how can I do a strategic plan? So I realized there was a need, and then I created the association so that people can volunteer to help and mentor different kind of women depending on their background or needs. So that is how my interest came, and I saw such amazing women with such a lot of talent that were not known. And I said, how can this be possible? So I said, we have to do something. So that's why we joined forces together. And I met you, and I said, Christine, you have to join this movement, and you, we have to be together because we are stronger together to show the world that we can do it, even though we are not techie. And in the background, because I always have learned a lot of stuff about tech. I had a lot of interest in knowing how it works. Other kind of stuff is the vision and how to run the business, and these soft skills Francesca and Rebecca were talking about. There are many good women in tech, really amazing. Now we have an exit of one woman who had a data company, and it has just been sold to a very good corporation. And there are really good women, but as I mentioned before, unknown. So we have to emerge this talent, and which is going to inspire and build the path for women at school and children who can see that's what I want, and there's someone who has done it that inspire them and say, I'm not the weird person who has this idea, who wants to implement this project. There is someone that has the same purpose than me, and there is a path already built in which I can walk and improve it and make a better society. Because when the society and the projects are balanced with women, men, intergenerational backgrounds with different ages, cultures, the companies work much better. But you need strong leaderships, because people are not going to say the same things, the same solutions. Things are going to be, you need to have a lot of, to be a very good leader in order to gather this good knowledge and align it with the vision, so that it becomes so strong and competitive in a way.
Yeah, I love that. And it's an absolute honor to work with you on the as part of the International Advisory Board. So it's been wonderful, the relationship that we've had since we first met at an SU event several years ago now. I think what we're all saying really is that as long as the starting point, as long as we can all lift off from an equal starting point and then go into whatever aspect of entrepreneurship, which role we want to play, I think that's the crucial factor, not only in this arena, but in many arenas. I'd like to, it's been wonderful spending time with you all during this podcast. I'd love it if you would leave our listeners with one final thought around female entrepreneurship, potentially in the digital world, or just as a female entrepreneur. What would you advise some of our listeners with as a final comment? Rebecca, I'll go to you first.
Well, I would say that everything is possible, and don't give up, and don't be embarrassed or afraid to ask for help.
Love it. It's very short, sharp, sweet. And I love what you said about the accelerator. Franziska? Oh, Franziska, you're on mute.
There we go. My final thought is a call to action, and the call to action is for us all to support fellow women and to buy from women in business. I love supporting small businesses by buying from them rather than going to large corporations. And so if we all support women in business, we cheer them on, and we also as entrepreneurial women can lead as role models and also lead our next generations by being the epic women that we are in this space.
Thank you. And a final word from you, Teresa.
A final word is don't be afraid of failing. Learn from that and go ahead. And we are inspirational not only for women, we are also inspirational for men. And this is what I found in all the talks we had last year with presidents that are male of the huge corporations. When I said this is inspirational for women, for the next generation of women entrepreneurs, and they say not only for women, you're inspiring us. And I think this is important, that things are changing and we have to be there, and people are appreciating this effort that we are doing to emerge your projects and my projects, because I'm also an entrepreneur, that can in a way contribute to this agenda 2030 and improve the world using technology, but as a tool. Because the important thing is to have the vision and to have the purpose and to have a vision of what problem you want to solve. So, and it comes from the deep of your heart, and you put a lot of energy and passion that you just go for it and accomplish your dreams. So go for your dreams.
Thank you. And it's all about, isn't it, creating that legacy, leaving the world a better place than it was when we came into it, and working really hard to achieve those sustainable development goals. Rebecca Grainger, Franziska, Iseli, and Teresa Alarcos, it has been my absolute honour and pleasure to spend this time with you this afternoon. Thank you to all our listeners. Please, if you like this podcast, share it. And we look forward to your company again. And Teresa, I think I just saw your hand go up. Do you have a final comment?
Yes, just one thing. The book I wrote about this top woman is going to be in English next October. So I will let you know so that you can read a lot of stuff about women all over the world from the 5 continents, talking about their projects and how to reach a corporation, how to build bridges from ecosystems to corporations. So I thank you very much. It was amazing being with you and learning from your experiences.
Thank you. And we'll definitely highlight the book and promote the book when it comes out in English. For any Spanish readers, you can order it straight away. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to catching up with you again soon. Stay tuned for the next episode of Inspired for Impact. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.